The studio. Good morning, Rafid.
Hi there.
Hi.
Good morning, Mas Pao and Mbak Kai.
Hello, good morning. So, straight up, first of all, can you tell us more about your organization and why do you specifically focus on the sharks?
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you very much, first of all, for having me in this World Animal Day. So, Thresher Shark Indonesia is the organization that is based in Alor Island, Indonesia. For those who don't know where is Alor, it's actually part of the East Nusa Tenggara province. So it's close to Timor-Leste. It's just, one ship away. And our organization's mission is to conserve the pelagic thresher shark, as I've mentioned, one of the endangered species in Indonesia, and their population has declined. But at the same time, I think, the conservation for this species is still very lacking. As of now, there is very minimum efforts to conserve them from the further declines of the populations and also from the further threats of extinction.
All right, Rafid, for those of us like myself who are not very familiar with marine life, what are some of the differences from thresher sharks as opposed to other species of sharks?
Yeah, for thresher shark is a very unique species because as in Indonesia it's called hiu tikus because they have a big eyes and a very long tail. So in total length, as you can see here in the video, that from the snout until the tip of the tail, they can range for about 3.5 meters. But half of its length, it's only tail. So they use the tail to stand for fish, and there are over 600 shark species around the world, but only thresher sharks that actually have this feature. So they have perfected their, evolutionary feature of using this tail to hunt for fish.
Wow.
So there's no other shark species in the world that has this kind of, special physical feature.
And it would make sense because it does look like a rat's tail.
Yeah. Long.
Yeah. Mas Rafid, what is making the population decline so quickly over the past 10 years? I mean, 80% is very drastic.
Yeah, definitely. I think in general, shark population have declined, significantly because over the past decades, they have been the target for shark fin soup. It's one of the traditional Chinese food and delicacy, but it's actually kind of like a myth that they said consuming shark fins actually could increase your vitality and health, but it actually contains a lot of mercury.
Yeah.
So because of the high demands in the market and the high prices, a lot of shark species are being hunted for their fins, but also for their meats. But specifically for pelagic thresher sharks, even if I say that the long tail is actually one of the unique feature, but it's actually posed kind of like a limitation for them because it makes them more vulnerable for entangled in the fishing nets.
Right.
And then for the case in Alor, they're actually entangled in the fishing lines. So and especially in the industrial fisheries, many of the thresher shark populations are caught accidentally by industrial tuna fisheries because they associated closely by tuna.
Right.
So if you can imagine, there are like 1,000 tons of fisheries capacity. 50% of them could include thresher sharks. So 500 tons of it include thresher sharks within tuna fisheries. So they comprise 50% of incidental catch within tuna fisheries. That's why that becomes one of the driver of their declines.
Right.
But specifically, I think also in the small-scale fisheries, like in Alor, they're also being targeted by the local communities, especially the fishers who are dependent on them for food security, like protein, and also for livelihoods because they sell the fins and also they sell the meat for their economic needs.
They certainly look very unique, and we're opening your website at the moment as you're speaking. We're looking at all these projects that you have. Could you share with us what are the visions and goals that your organization wish to achieve when it comes to conserving thresher sharks, and also what kind of programs and efforts have been done so far to be able to achieve these goals?
Yeah, I think we do multiple activities. one of the main causes for treasure shark decline is that because many of the local communities actually dependent on them as food security and livelihoods. So in order to protect them, first is that we have to make sure that the local communities could shift into different alternative livelihoods or economic sources. So in Treasure Shark Indonesia, we're actually engaging the shark fishermen to, working together with them to find what is the best alternative solutions for them. Do they wanted to fish other types of fishes, for example, tuna and snapper, and also, other types of business. And we are providing them incentives. We give them the new boats and also the machines so they can fish for tuna, and also they can start alternative business. For example, they're selling ice in the village, and they're selling chickens, so they can slowly transition into the alternative business, and at the same time they could maintain their overall economic well-being. And I think conservation is also multifaceted, so it's not enough to only engaging the local fishermen locally. We also conducted ecological research. So as you see in the photos and the videos here, we're conducting research using satellites and acoustic tagging technology. So it's actually one of the first in Indonesia, where we tag them using satellites. It's kind of like a GPS, really, so we can monitor where they move, and whether they are staying within the ocean in Alor, or they swim outside of the marine protected area in the districts. So by that, we can know which is the critical habitats for them, so we can minimize any threats, for example, fishing, or even from any further threats around the critical habitats.
I mean, that's really interesting because...
And lastly, I think, additionally, we also have the youth training program that I will explain a little bit later. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to point out it's very interesting and great that you're doing the research, because according to the fact sheet that you guys released, treasure shark is one of the most understudied species of sharks in the world. And I think because they are endemic here to Indonesia, it's a great opportunity for you as well.
It does look very unique, doesn't it? It's not just the tail that's very long, but their flippers and their snout. Yeah,
it's very different.
Very unique. So, do you get a lot of pushback when it comes to, let's talk about, like, for example, the fishing community? I mean, that's basically talking about someone's livelihood or financial earnings as well when it comes to conservation efforts. So how do you deal with some of these challenges that you face in regards to maintaining your program?
Yeah, Maspal, thank you. That's actually a brilliant questions. Especially working with the local communities, we are dealing with how we can ensure that they can maintain their economic and social well-being, and it's really, really prone to conflicts. And I think at first the fishers really welcome with the idea of conservation, but at the same time, I think as the project develops, they started to be really conflicting within the fishing communities, one or the other, because it's strongly influenced by, say, political figure, or even like some of the people who are powerful in the community. For example, if there are some shark fin traders within the communities, they tend to put pressures, or even giving some different kind of ideas to the shark fishermen to keep fishing for sharks. But thankfully, I think right now, more and more community members have realized that pelagic treasure sharks is one of the important species within the district, and they realize that it's endangered. Now they wanted to, participate in the alternative livelihood program. I think the idea is that to find supporters and also understand how to navigate the political dynamics within the community, and really to build the trust. And tell the fishing community that we do this not trying to something harmful for you, but it's actually to help both the species and also both the fishing communities who are fishing for them.
Right.
Well, it's about World Animal Day, right? Sure. World Animal Day is also educating people that animals also deserve the life, and there are certain animals that you just shouldn't touch. And I was just reading, according to your fact sheet, the thresher shark is also protected under the Indian Ocean Tuna Commission, Resolution 1209, and Indonesian Ministerial Decree of 13/2012. So are people actually aware of this? Because it really means that, you know, that mistreating or, you know, fishing or, you know, or trading or something like that, it's illegal, right? Because they're actually a protected species now. So what is actually the current status right now? And I've been reading, your fact sheet is short and very concise and amazing. They reproduce like mammals and very, very slow and rare.
Okay.
Right? So, and they get entangled in fish. So there's a lot of very complicated things. So you wanted to explain about the youth programs and how do you make other people aware of this as well?
Yeah, thank you, Kai. I think, you know, it's indeed it's a very complex issue because even if like you're protecting them locally and then there's some regulations in place, it really is a multifaceted issue where, you know, you have to engage a lot of people to aware of it. And then, you know, because Indonesia is a huge country, we're divided by thousands of islands, and in terms of monitoring and, you know, enforcement, it becomes really ineffective because government, especially that, you know, it cannot, you know, cover all of the Indonesia's islands, and there's still so many data gaps regarding the species. And sharks in general is just like really, you know, people not know all about it, and I think it's really a good thing that Sea Morning Show bringing sharks awareness into the topics today. And for the youth program, I think because both myself and Dewi, who is the co-founder of the organizations, are coming from outside of Alor. So myself is from South Tenggara and Dewi is from Padang. And we realized that, you know, in order to sustain the initiatives of conservation, we need the local participations from the community, right? Especially the young people, because they are the ones that live there, they grow there, and then they have kind of like a spiritual attachment to the place. So we wanted them to be the leaders who could sustain what we have started, because myself and Dewi are someone, you know, people from outside, but they, you know, local people there, especially the young people, they will be the ones that continue the initiative moving forward even further. And through we have a program called the Thresher Shark Conservation Champion. So we recruited talented 20 indigenous young people from Alor who have motivations to make change in their villages. We gave them training on leadership, training on marine conservation, and, you know, at the end we actually gave them small grants so they can create a small projects that are relevant to the issues around their villages. So for example, one of the projects that is they're conducting right now is beyond Thresher Shark. So they're actually restoring mangrove areas that were you know, cut down by the communities, and they are engaging the village members to, you know, to stop cutting down mangroves and replanting some of the areas that have been heavily degraded. So that's one of the inspiring projects that have been led by the local indigenous youth that we have through the program.
And I think it's great whenever you when you talk about conservation efforts when it comes to anything, I think you really need to involve the youth, because it's not something that can change overnight. It is something that's an ongoing process that will take time, and it will take our youth in order to help develop it. Any last wishes from you as well as Thresher Shark Indonesia on this special World Animal Day?
Yeah, I think my wish is that I hope that there will be more young people care, and especially Indonesian communities in general, about shark issues and animal conservation in general, because, you know, many animal species are extinct every day. So we have to do our best to, you know, kind of increase the awareness and also participate in any local conservation initiatives. And at the same time, I hope that for Thresher Indonesia, because we are looking for expanding to different regions, for example, to Banda, we hope to, you know, strengthening our network of Thresher Shark conservation, not only in Alor, but throughout Indonesia regions that are dependent on the species, and then we can, you know, hopefully conserve them in the future.
Absolutely, amen to that. Thank you so much, Mas Rafid, for your time here and Thresher Shark Indonesia. You guys can find out more. Threshershark.id is both their website as well as their Instagram handle. You can check out both for more information on this as well.
Thank you and happy World Animal Day. Ooh.
Thank you.
Interesting, by the way. I've never seen a shark that looks like that.
I never, and I went to the Jakarta Aquarium, to the SeaWorld Aquarium. I'm not sure, maybe I missed it in the giant aquarium.
Yeah.
Because you shouldn't have missed it because it's very
unique,
significant.
right.
It's very unique.
But also probably because there's so few of them. I mean,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of them to be displayed to begin with. So hopefully that will change. All right, we're going to take a short break here, everyone. But don't go anywhere. We've got updates as well as some recaps for you from around the world when we return here on the Sea Morning Show. Stay with us. Welcome back to another episode of Buddy Talk here on Sea Today. Well, maybe not. Put your leg down.
Do whatever you want with your hands. Like.
Silakan untuk hubungin saya karena sepertinya saya sangat jago nih gambarnya.
Kita sih anyway murid udah 10 ribuan.
Wow.
Snake specialist Nirut Chomna has dedicated the last 20 years of his life to the study of these reptiles. Snakes are born survivors, able to endure the toughest conditions, and they've adapted well to a range of habitats across Thailand.
On football's greatest stage, the gods of the game have earned their encore. Pelé, Beckenbauer, Cruyff, Maradona. It's the cup of hope. The cup of dreams. It's football's biggest prize on the greatest stage of all.
This is me crying out loud, whatever. Whoa, look at this. My shoes, guys.
Dia MD. MD-nya ada panjangnya tuh. Apa tuh? My Dream. Oke. Bisa baca ngalam?
Bisa.
Coba.
Matur suwun.
Wah, cuma segitu saja.
Longing for a short getaway where you can be away from people but still be productive?
You can! Come down here at Bidadari Island where you can learn a thing or two about the history.
This paradise island is more than just white sands and Tuscan blue waters.
You're not an outdoorsy type? Well, so am I. Don't be dismissive of the idea because
We're gonna get in touch with nature and hopefully have fun while at it. Come see the beauty only on Sea Indonesia.
Come see the beauty only on Sea Indonesia.
Welcome back to the Sea Morning Show, and we will bring you back to some of our top stories from around the world. Let's start with Brazil. Former Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva of the leftist Workers' Party secured the most votes in the country's presidential election on Sunday. However, it was not enough to avoid a runoff vote against his far-right rival, Jair Bolsonaro.
The last stretch of people casted their votes in Rio de Janeiro before polling stations closed on Sunday. Anyone at the voting stations before the formal closing at 5 p.m. Brazilian time was still able to vote. Long lines of people waited to cast their ballots in many cities. Later that day, during a gathering in Sao Paulo, Lula da Silva said he will be campaigning starting on Monday to talk to the citizens and convincing them that he would win to be the best course for the nation. Lula da Silva, known universally as Lula, secured 48.4% of valid votes, which excludes blank and null ballots, while Bolsonaro received 43.2% according to Brazil's electoral authority. In the first round, 9 other candidates received a fraction of the front-runner support. However, since neither candidate received more than 50% of the valid votes, a second-round vote between them will be scheduled for October 30th.
Most Brazilians were surprised by the results of the general election on Sunday, as President Jair Bolsonaro only suffered a marginal loss in the first round of polling, which leads to a runoff election.
The most trusted opinion polls had indicated leftist former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva was far out front and potentially even clinching her first-round victory on Sunday. One had given da Silva a 14 percentage point lead. However, Bolsonaro came within just 5 points of da Silva, who he will face in a high-stakes runoff on October 30.
Então, eu não consigo acreditar em mais pesquisas e eu acho que o Bolsonaro vai fazer muita coisa ainda que pode surpreender. Então, só acredito quando o juiz apitar os 47 minutos do segundo tempo.
Still, da Silva came close to an outright majority with 48.4% of the vote to Bolsonaro's 43.2%, according to Brazil's electoral authority. 9 other candidates split the rest. Both Lula and Bolsonaro supporters expressed disappointment and surprise. Elias Otaviano, a 72-year-old retired supporter of da Silva, thought he would win in the first round, while 70-year-old Maria Rose Clara, a Bolsonaro supporter, also thought her candidate would win in the first round, or at the very least, lead in the runoff.
Me surpreendeu. Acho que o Lula tinha que ter ganhado no primeiro turno.
Porque eu estava na expectativa de pelo menos ser segundo turno, mais o Bolsonaro acima e o Lula abaixo, mas foi o contrário. Então eu fiquei decepcionada.
Sunday's vote was virtually free from the political violence that many had feared, yet tensions remain high, as are the stakes. The election will determine whether the country returns Lula or keeps Bolsonaro in office for another term.
Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu and Defense Minister Hulusi Akar traveled to Libya on Monday to show support for the country. A high-level Turkish delegation arrived in the Libyan capital Tripoli for an official visit following instructions from President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. And furthermore, the Turkish foreign minister said the country will support Libya without hesitation. Cavusoglu also highlighted the need for Libya to come up with a political solution which can stabilize the war-torn country. The statement was made in a joint news conference with his Libyan counterpart Najla Mangush following a bilateral meeting. Now, he also announced that Turkey and Libya signed a memorandum of understanding to collaborate with the hydrocarbon sector and were due to sign gas agreements as well. Now, residents in Fort Myers, Florida, resume post-disaster reconstruction after Hurricane Ian devastated the region. The process is set to take several months to complete. And according to Xinhua news agency, property damage has been extensive, with losses estimated to reach anywhere from 28 to 47 billion US dollars. Some residents have been trying to salvage and rebuild whatever is left of their homes in Fort Myers, Florida. However, many of them are pessimistic following sight of the extensive damage and estimated that reconstruction will take months. Hurricane Ian also tipped over some boats in the nearby lake while hurling several others into trees. Furthermore, fallen branches damages some cars, while objects belonging to residents were found scattered around the area. Some residents have started clearing and discarding irreparable objects. However, the effort to rebuild homes to their livable state is hampered due to power outage. The effects of Hurricane Ian persisted on Monday as many are facing another week without power, while authorities continue to rescue residents from inundated homes. Frustrations mounted as the storm cut through Florida and continues to northeastern United States. Hurricane Ian have claimed at least 61 lives in Florida, 4 in Carolina, and 3 in Cuba after it wreaked havoc through the Caribbean and Florida. According to Florida's Emergency Management Agency, search and rescue efforts have been conducted in Florida on Monday. They also said that up to 1,600 people have been rescued across the state. Washed out bridges to barrier islands, flooded roadways, isolated cell phone service, and a lack of water, electricity, or internet have left hundreds of thousands isolated. The situation is expected to remain this small in many areas for the following days, since waterways are still overflowing. Now, let's head over to Thailand, where heavy rainfall battered the northeastern, and central parts of Thailand, causing severe flooding on Monday. Now, unfortunately, the situation deteriorated as authorities had to release water from completely filled dams to already overflowing rivers.
Floods inundated some areas in Thailand on Monday. In Ubon Ratchathani, many areas were already flooded when the remnants of tropical storm Noru turned into a tropical depression that swept through the city last week. With Moon River continuing to overflow, more than 7,000 people were moved into 60 shelters provided by the city, and authorities said the flood water level continued to rise. Rescue workers were wading through waist-high water, helping residents to evacuate. Officials issued urgent flood warnings to residents in the central provinces of Sukhothai, Phitsanulok, and Phichit after the water level in the Yamu River rose above the riverbank. There are continuing warnings of flooding in the large part of the country, including major cities like Chiang Mai, Ubon Ratchathani, and Nakhon Ratchasima. Residents from Wanghin village in Sukhothai province rushed to get away as flash floods with strong currents swept through their communities. Overnight, rescue workers and locals piled sandbanks next to the Yamu riverbank, trying to divert overflowing water away from the city. The Department of Disaster Prevention and Mitigation reported floods caused by seasonal monsoon rains, and overflowing rivers impacted at least 45,000 households in 35 provinces.